Hello everyone, I'm Wave, and today I wanted to talk about a very specific story beat that I found throughout my time reading visual novels that almost feels like it's gotten overused in a way, being the concept of looping in a visual novel and having it to where the various choices and routes that you've gone throughout your playthrough are all canon because the protagonist or somebody else within the story has been constantly traveling back in time, or all of the different playthroughs have been completed on different timelines and all of those converge into like one bigger, greater goal. I don't necessarily think I'm going to be going in and spoiling a whole bunch of different like titles that I've read. But I kind of want to talk about the concept of it because I think Steins Gate, for one example, is something that I think most everyone knows, that it utilizes that various like multi-timeline kind of deal. And I want to say that like if you're somebody that's like brand new into anime and you watch the anime, you think, oh, this is like a really cool concept. Or like, you know, when you are in visual novels and you kind of read through a couple of them, the first few times you actually see that concept of looping and like time travel shenanigans is very cool. But then like the more and more visual novels that I've read that kind of do use it, it almost feels kind of like a little bit of a cop-out. I understand that the concept of time looping is something that only kind of really works in visual novels, so I can see why it is done as well. A couple years back, I played an RPG that kind of dabbled in trying to use the concept of looping to be like kind of this like surprise or like shocking moment in the story. And how they handled it was that they made sure that you, the player, knew that there was the concept of looping, but then they only ever had you play out like a little bit of a portion of like the early portions of a loop before kind of just showing you a multitude of different cutscenes to kind of like convey that level of going back in time and doing things over and over and over, because they understand that gameplay wise it would suck if you were to play like pretty much the whole game all up until that point all over again, because you know it's within a genre that doesn't have a like control or skip button for previously read dialogue. When it comes to visual novels though, I think, you know, it's the perfect medium for that because of the fact that you have various routes and various different choices. Different people could end up playing different portions of the game. So for the people that are like completionists and go out of their way to go ahead and read as much of the visual novel as possible, I can see where like, okay, the concept of looping is bringing the story together and making it feel a little bit more cohesive. But I do have to wonder, like, and maybe just for myself personally, why it kind of is used as this like, okay, well, Steins Gate kind of uses it in a bit more of a, like an interesting manner, I want to say, just because with the anime adaptation as well. The reason why I think the anime adaptation worked so well was because Steins Gate is very like linear, that it's not whole different playthroughs. Everything happens all like one by one within one playthrough, to where all the various timelines are interconnected. So when it comes to like other visual novels, it almost feels like a little bit of an afterthought or like a cop-out, where, like I said earlier, almost like by the concept of you could play through like an entire game and feel like you are having a good time enjoying all the various routes, and then at the very end of some of the visual novels that I've read, it almost feels like it's just like, okay, well, we're kind of ignoring what else has happened throughout the rest of the game in order to have this like big like wow factor of, oh man, we've been planning for this the whole entire game. This has been leading up to the moment where we reveal that this was all a time loop. And I don't know, it's just something that I found to be like quite interesting in the time that I've been reading, because I have seen like a decent amount of visual novels that I've read where I'll get to the end of it and then I'm like, I know that a couple of the visual novels that I've read, I have been like impressed by how that kind of like story beat weaves everything together and makes it feel something that's like broader scope and also just cool. But then as I have been reading more and more, it is something where I have kind of like, it's been a hit or miss for me, where I almost feel like I'm a little bit too like past that point of being wowed by that specific like trope within visual novels. And I figured it was just something that was worth talking about because it's something that is very like spoiler heavy when it comes to whatever like visual novel you'd be talking about, but at the same time is something that I do really think that like is only possible within visual novels. But do too many visual novels actually rely on it as a sort of crutch to elevate their story? But yeah, I figured it would be a pretty interesting topic to talk about. I've been Wave. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.